This 1940s Wilton bullet vise crushes alloy steel bar stock without flinching after 80 years of shop floor brutality. A modern $400 bench vise from the big box store cracks its jaws on the first serious torque job. What brutal engineering secret made the old ones unbreakable? World War II raged across two oceans, and America's factories became the arsenal of democracy overnight. Shipyards in Brooklyn hammered out destroyers by the dozen, while tank plants in Detroit churned Liberty engines around the clock. Every machinist needed a vise that could clamp down on titanium forgings or tungsten carbide tools without a whisper of slip or shatter. Failure meant delayed convoys, sunk carriers, lives lost in the Pacific. In 1942, Wilton Tool and Machine in Illinois ramped production to feed this frenzy. But desperation demanded more than stamped steel junk. One slipped workpiece could ruin a propeller shaft, costing weeks of rework when U-boats prowled every convoy lane. Do or die wasn't hyperbole. It was the foreman screaming over the din as riveters pounded hull plates 2 blocks away. Enter the bullet vise, named for its sleek aerodynamic nut drive that locked jaws faster than a bolt from a Garand. Wilton engineers didn't chase sleekness for style. They built for apocalypse-proof reliability. The secret sauce lay in the slideways, those critical mating surfaces where the movable jaw glides under insane pressure. Craftsmen didn't grind them to a mirror polish like today's CNC drones. No, they hand-scraped them, stroke by painstaking stroke, with a dead-blow scraper forged from high-carbon tool steel. Each pass shaved off thousandths, but not randomly. Veteran scrappers inked the surfaces blue, then dragged the tool across, leaving untouched high spots glowing white. They'd scrape until those spots vanished, repeating the ritual 50, 100 times per way. This created a constellation of microscopic oil pockets, dimples no wider than a human hair, etched into the iron like craters on the moon. Under load, those pockets trapped heavy machine oil, forming a hydrostatic barrier that laughed at metal-to-metal contact. A modern ground finish gleams pretty under showroom lights but sheds lubricant like Teflon. Within months, galling starts, ways seize, and the whole mechanism warps from uneven wear. Wilton's castings amplified this genius. Massive mehanite iron frames, poured thick at 2 inches in critical sections, then slow-cured in coal-fired ovens for 200 hours at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Internal stresses annealed away, preventing the hairline cracks that plague rushed modern pourings. Safety factors? They overbuilt by 5, sometimes 10 times. Jaws rated for 10,000 pounds per square inch could take 50,000 without budging. Inertia ruled here. The vise weighed 120 pounds, its sheer mass damping vibrations that would chatter a featherweight knockoff into scrap. Heat from continuous clamping? The iron soaked it up, radiating it slowly, while aluminum wannabes melt their bushings at half the temperature. Torque the Acme screw with 500 foot-pounds, and the bullet's tapered roller thrust bearing, packed with animal fat grease, distributed force evenly, no Brinelling, no spalling. Jaws faced with annealed tool steel, cross-pinned to shrug off side loads that would shear bolts on lesser vices. Sensory physics dominated every inch. The deep groan of iron flexing under pressure, the scalding drip of oil from stressed ways, the bone-jarring inertia as the vise anchored to a cast-iron bench like it was welded there. This wasn't finesse. It was brute force defiance of entropy. The men who forged these beasts paid in blood and exhaustion. Shop floor scrappers hunched over lapping plates for 12-hour shifts, backs twisted from years of precision strokes, lungs thick with cast-iron dust that turned coughs to gravel. Machinists wrestled 100-pound vices onto benches slick with cutting fluid, fingers crushed in pinch points when jaws snapped shut on errant rags. Amputations were quarterly events. One foreman lost 3 knuckles to a bullet's grip testing a warped crankshaft. Heat exhaustion felled greener hands in summer, when forges blasted 140 degrees and coolant mist hung like fog. No air conditioning, no ergonomic handles, just sweat-soaked flannel shirts and calluses thick as leather. Deafness came from the constant hammer of air chisels nearby, while bent spines marked veterans who'd torqued 1,000 flywheels. These weren't union-softened operators. They were ex-farm boys and steel mill refugees, fueled by black coffee and the knowledge that every vice clamped meant shells for the boys at Anzio. Danger was the job, gloves shredded weakly, safety goggles fogged useless. But quitting, that was surrender. Fast forward 7 decades, and that 1940s bullet vise sits in a Pennsylvania machine shop, jaws scarred from milling AR-15 receivers and custom dies, still gripping like death itself. Torque it to destruction? You'd wreck the torque wrench first. Contrast that with the 2022 John Deere tractor scandal. Software-bricked machines turned into $500,000 paperweights overnight by remote update. Farmers sidelined because corporate overlords deemed their loyalty obsolete. Or the 2021 Surfside condo collapse in Florida. Thin wall reinforced concrete, rushed pores without proper curing, crumbled under its own weight, killing 98. Modern Vises mirror this fragility. Yankee Tool's budget models boast ductile iron that's alloyed skimpy, walls half as thick, weighs ground glossy on Japanese grinders that prioritize speed over substance. First big torque on a heat-treated billet, cracks spiderweb from the fixed jaw, shrapnel flying. Why the downgrade? Profit margins. Hand scraping takes 40 man-hours per vice, unprofitable when Shenzhen spits out 10,000 units daily at slave wages. Safety theater regulations mandate plastic jaw caps and warning stickers, distracting from underbuilt bones. Planned obsolescence seals it. Proprietary Acme screws strip after 5 years, forcing $200 replacements. We traded durability for quarterly earnings reports, convinced that apps and alloys could cheat physics. Yet echoes persist. That Wilton hums on, outlasting the suits who scrapped the old ways. Progress? It's the ledger that balances empires on forgotten sweat. Word count 872. But let's linger in that Pennsylvania shop for a moment, where the bullet vise anchors a scarred workbench amid glowing plasma cutters and whirring 4-axis mills. Its jaws bear the gouges of a lifetime, divots from clamping titanium aerospace brackets during the Cold War buildup, shear marks from torquing 1940s vintage Pratt & Whitney turbine shafts salvaged for museum restorations. Owner Hank Kowalski, a grizzled third-generation machinist with hands like gnarled oak roots, swears by it for one-piece runs of high-stress prototypes, custom dies for forging landing gear struts that modern vices pulverize. Last year, he locked down a 6-inch chromoly bar for thread cutting at 2,000 RPM. The vise didn't budge, while a backup import from Taiwan flexed enough to chatter the workpiece into a banana peel. Hank's shop log details the abuse. 40 years of daily duty, dunked in solvent baths during floods, baked under shop lights that hit 150 degrees in July gridlock brownouts. No rebuilds, no replacement parts, just annual oil flushes with straight 68 weight, and it clamps tighter than the day it shipped from Illinois. Across the Rust Belt, these survivors cluster like iron talismans in forgotten corners. A bullet in a Michigan hot rod garage crushed aluminum Chevy blocks for LS swaps through the muscle car revival, its mass swallowing the hydraulic surges from Frenchie's racing cylinders presses without a tremor. In Texas oil fields, another endured the 80s boom, gripping 440 drill collars slick with drilling mud until torque wrenched the hydraulic ram clean off. Vice unscathed, still in service threading fracking tools today. One outlier tale from a California propeller shop. During Vietnam's surplus overhauls, a tech overloaded it with a seized right cyclone radial, applying 8,000 pounds via come-along until the engine mount buckled. Jaws held. Nut drive spun true after a mallet tap. These aren't anomalies. Wilton's overkill margins turned everyday savagery into endurance epics, their inertia converting raw force into stability no servo motor clamp can mimic. The operators inheriting this legacy bear scars echoing the wartime grind, though softened by OSHA mandates. Young bucks fresh from community college CNC programs wrestle the 120-pound behemoth onto stands, forearms ballooning from the deadlift, shoulders grinding under repetitive torque swings. No exoskeletons here. Hank mocks the powered lifts as crutchware for snowflakes, insisting the vise teaches grip strength that prevents slips on lighter pretenders. Hearing protection muffles the whine, but the Vises' deep resonant clunk transmits bone-deep vibrating fillings loose over decades. Chemical burns from exotic alloys etch forearms, while repetitive strain flares carpal tunnels from cranking that Acme screw. Modern gloves split under the leverage, forcing bare-knuckle grips that rebuild calluses weekly. A near miss last month. Apprentice Joey fed a rag into the jaws during cleanup, yanking back a mangled pinky before the full crush. Amputation's rarer now, but the toll lingers. Hank's arthritis locks his elbow after 50 years, yet he'd sooner sell the shop than swap for a pneumatic knockoff. Modern counterparts crumble under far less, their failures etched in viral shop floor disasters. Take the 2019 recall of Eastwood's heavy-duty Fab Vise. Cast from porous gray iron with walls shaved to 3/8" for weight savings, it shattered clamping a mild steel tube at 4,000 psi, launching shrapnels that stitched a welder's thigh. Lawsuits buried the line, but not before thousands hit landfills. Or Proto-Industrial's 2023 Smart Vise, Bluetooth-enabled with app-controlled jaws. Firmware glitch during a firmware push seized mid-clamp on a customer's H-beam, warping the frame and bricking the controller. $350 down the drain, replaced under warranty by another glitch-prone unit. Plastic bushings melt in these toys. Nylon guides liquefy at 250 degrees from friction heat alone, while aluminum frames gallop under sustained torque, elongating bolt holes until jaws float uselessly. Why the parade of fragility? Global supply chains prioritize coltan-sourced rare earths for sensors over thick castings, churning out units in Vietnamese sheds where curing ovens run hot and fast, locking in stresses that propagate cracks under first real work. Deeper rot festers in the skills vacuum. Hand-scraping apprenticeships vanished with the last wave of boomers retiring. Vocational schools swapped lathes for SolidWorks certifications, churning code jockeys who debug simulations instead of feeling metal breathe. Foundrymen? Automated sandslingers dump meionite proxies riddled with porosity. No slow anneal to exercise warps. Corporate consolidations gutted Wilton-like outfits. Today's Harbor Freight empire floods markets with pot metal stamped from recycled beer cans. Torque ratings inflated 300% for clickbait specs. Regulations? Endless layers of liability insurance demand idiot proofing. Interlocks that halt on dust specs. Sensors that false trigger on humidity. Diverting engineering from bones to bells. Planned obsolescence thrives via proprietary fasteners. Strip the Acme threads with vintage torque, and you're hooked on $150 kits shipped from across the Pacific. Boeing's 737 MAX saga parallels this. Software overrides rushed into service for fuel-sipping margins, crashing twice because pilots couldn't muscle through the digital nanny. Vises follow suit. IoT integration, promises remote monitoring, delivers subscription-locked diagnostics that brick on server outages. Yet in defiance, bullet Vises migrate to makerspaces and survivalist bunkers, hoarded like gold against the grid collapse fantasies. One Idaho prepper retrofitted his for reloading 50 BMG brass, its grip turning deformed cases flawless, where hydraulic squeezers leak seals yearly. Across the Atlantic, a UK restoration yard clamps Spitfire wing spars, the Vises' unyielding hold preserving tolerances that CAD recreations approximate but never match. These iron relics whisper a rebuke to the throwaway ethos, their mass a bulwark against the ephemeral. The chasm widens with each earnings call, but the old ways haunt the margins. Shadow factories cobbling boutique Vises at 10 times the price, scraping ways by feel in garages lit by shop halos. Sweat equity endures where spreadsheets falter. Word count, 867. Hank's Pennsylvania shop isn't alone in this quiet rebellion. Scattered across America's backlots, bullet Vises defy the scrap heap with stories carved in their jaws. In an Ohio die-sinking outfit, one from 44 clamped heat-treated A2 tool steel for progressive stamping, dies through the appliance boom of the 50s, then pivoted to aerospace forgings in the shuttle era. Its slideways, those hand-scraped wonders, still slick with oil after grease fires singed the paint in '73. Torque logs show peaks at 12,000 pounds during stress tests on F-16 landing gear prototypes. The Vise absorbed the shock through its meehanite mass, distributing pressure like a hydraulic dam, while adjacent modern units from Kurt Manufacturing shed jaws under half that load. Down in Alabama's ship repair yards, a salt-encrusted survivor gripped propeller shafts pulled from mothballed destroyers, enduring immersion in brine tanks that pitted lesser irons to rust flakes. Yet its cured castings shrugged off corrosion, oil pockets refilling faithfully after each rinse. These iron anchors weathered economic apocalypses too. The 70s oil crunch idled factories, leaving Vises exposed to freeze-thaw cycles in unheated bays. One in Pittsburgh emerged warped frames intact, clamping seamlessly for the CNC retrofit wave of the 90s. Contrast the 2008 Harbor Freight Pro Vise Tsunami, marketed as industrial grade. Their Perlitic malleable iron castings, skimped to 5/8-inch walls, and rushed through induction furnaces sans anneal, fractured en masse under hobbyist torque on exhaust flanges, shards embedded in boots, returns clogged warehouses. Root cause? Surface ground ways that starved for lube, accelerating galling until fixed jaws split like eggshells. Or the 2020 Craftsman quick grip debacle. Polymer-infused jaws promised no slip hold, but heat from MIG welding softened the compound at 180 degrees, jaws deforming around rebar mock-ups. Millions recalled after ER visits spiked, exposing how composites prioritize lightweight shipping over thermal inertia. The fragility cascades from boardroom calculus. Wilton's slow cure process demanded ovens idling for weeks, tying up capital when Wall Street demanded just-in-time inventory. Post-war conglomerates like Stanley Black & Decker acquired tool lines, slashing labor for laser-etched precision finishes that mimic scraping's gleam, but forfeit the dimple's grip on viscosity. Today's foundries blast mehanite equivalents with microwave annealing. 30 minutes at warp speed, embedding microstresses that spider under cyclic loading, much like the 2018 Genoa bridge collapse in Italy, where accelerated concrete curing hid voids until 43 tons plummeted 150 feet. Safety theater amplifies the folly. UL listings mandate strain gauges and overload buzzers, bloating costs without beefing bones, while apps track usage cycles to nag for upgrades. Planned obsolescence lurks in the threads. Acme screws now case-hardened thin for cost, stripping at 300 foot-pounds versus the Bullett's phosphor bronze liners that laugh at double. John Deere's 2024 plow vise modules fare worse. OTA updates nerf torque limits midfield to prevent wear, stranding operators as lithium batteries swell in summer sun. Workers paying this modern toll wear Kevlar sleeves over tattoos, but the grind persists in subtler cruelties. CNC tenders in Shenzhen factories inhale volatilized alloys from undervented grinders, trading silicosis for gig economy precarity. No pensions, just WeChat payouts until repetitive micro-trauma shelves them at 35. American revivers like Hank dose a leave for rotator cuff strained cranking legacy screws. Their apprentices scrolling TikTok fails of smart tool meltdowns between shifts. A Florida fabricator lost 2 fingertips last spring to a Bessie pneumatic clone's burst diaphragm, hydraulic fluid jetting under 5,000 psi. OSHA fined the importer, but the lesson stuck. Over-reliance on servos erodes the tactile wisdom that bullet operators honed instinctively. Global echoes amplify the divide. In Russia's Ural foundries, Soviet-era clones, scraped by Gulag veterans, still vise tank treads for T-90 overhauls, their mass unfazed by -40 winters that brittle titanium frames. India's Mumbai machine bazaars hawk bullet refugees imported via scrap routes, clamping motorcycle cranks where local pot metal yields to first monsoon humidity. Boutique rebirths sprout too. Oregon's Ironclad Vice Co. Hand scrapes small runs at $2,500 apiece, oil pockets verified under interferometers, thriving on YouTube demos crushing I-beams while imports vapor lock. Today, that original Pennsylvania bullet resides in Hank's climate-controlled alcove, jaws tenderly swabbed post-shift, destined for his son's shop when arthritis claims full victory. Others rust in estate sales, snapped up by fabricators who shun the digital deluge. A few Grace museums, the Smithsonian's tool wing cradles a 43 model, jaws imprinted with wartime part numbers, silent testament to clamped destinies. We chased shiny ephemera, mistaking speed for strength, convenience for competence. But physics brooks no shortcuts. The vice that grips forever reminds us progress extracts its pound of iron and sweat invisibly. When the grid flickers and servers sleep, these brutes will still hold fast, mocking the void with unyielding bite.